Hey everyone, this is Dr. Steve Orma, and today I'm going to ask a question that was posted in the YouTube feed below one of my previous videos. And that question is it normal to not feel sleepy when you have insomnia? Is it normal to not feel sleepy or get sleepy when you have insomnia? So the quick answer to this is yes, it is normal, it is common. It's a normal part of insomnia for most people. And so today what I'm going to do is explain why this is, because this tends to baffle people and confuse them, why this happens. I'm going to explain sort of like the physiology behind this and why this happens. And then I'm also going to talk about how you break this, how you restore the sleepy feeling, the natural sleepy feeling. So first of all, it is normal and common. I see this in most of my clients with insomnia is they don't actually get sleepy during the day or even in the evening. Some of them do. So it's not like universal, but it is very common. And the reason for this is a few things. So what I'm going to first explain is, why does this happen? Because it seems contradictory. You're exhausted. You, by definition, if you have insomnia, haven't been sleeping well. You haven't been sleeping enough. You're not getting enough hours. This has been going on for, let's say, at least several weeks, if not months or years. And you've built up a lot of fatigue and you feel exhausted even. You feel worn down, very low energy. And yet you're not actually getting sleepy. Now, what do I mean by this? So there's a difference between feeling tired or feeling even exhausted and being sleepy. So sleepy is like where you are like nodding off. Your eyes are closing. You're sort of actually starting to go to sleep. And I'm sure you've had this experience at some point in your life where you are, it could be, you're riding in a car or you're watching TV, and you suddenly are just like your head starts to nod and your eyes start to close and you literally start to go to sleep. So sleepy is that feeling of, like this pressure to go to sleep, but not just the pressure, but the actual your body starting to actually go to sleep through either your eyes are starting to close and your head's nodding this also happens to students, when they're in lectures, especially if the lectures are kind of boring and long. You might be listening to your professor or your teacher speak and your eyes start to close because you're bored. And so that's what sleepiness is. And when a person has healthy, normal sleep and they don't have insomnia, that starts to happen in the evening. It could happen at other times, but if you have a normal, healthy pattern of sleep, you should be able to, stay awake and alert through the day, most of the time without actually getting sleepy. And then the sleepiness generally starts in the evening as you start getting close to your bedtime. So maybe within the last hour before you're going to go to bed, you start to feel sleepy. Your eyes might start closing as you're watching TV or something like that. Or you're reading a book and you start to fall asleep. So that's sleepy. And when people have insomnia, many times this doesn't happen. That certainly is what happened to me. Like I lost my sleepiness, even, when I wasn't sleeping at all or I had a sleepless night. A lot of times I didn't have the sleepiness. Now, sometimes I did. I had a couple of sleepless nights when I had insomnia and I had to, work the next day and I was, seeing a lot of clients, and that involves a lot of just sort of sitting and listening. And during some of those sessions, I did start to feel sleepy. Fortunately, I didn't fall asleep, but so it could still happen. But the reason why you don't feel as sleepy, or some people not sleepy at all, is part of insomnia. So first, I want to just sort of like normalize that, because it sort of baffles people and confuses people that, look, I'm not sleeping much, I'm exhausted, I haven't been sleeping well for a long time, and yet I don't feel that sleepiness that I used to. So what causes this? So there's a couple of things here. So we have, like, you could think of two systems in our body. We have a sleep system, which is dominant at nighttime when we sleep, and that is, dominant, let's say, around 8 hours of the day on average, or a third of the day. And then we have our wakefulness system, which is dominant during like the other 2/3 of the day, let's say like around 16 hours. Okay. And that's when we're up, so we wake up at, 8 a.m. and then, or we wake up at 7 a.m., let's say, and then maybe we go to bed at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Okay. So it's not exact in the numbers, but it's like around 2/3 we're awake and a third of the time we're sleeping. And we have these different systems. Now, these different systems have different physical things going on that drive them. Okay, so when our sleep system is dominant at night, or should be dominant, there's physical changes. There's differences that have happened in our body physically that bring that system alive and help us sleep at night. Okay, and bring us into that state. And then in the morning when we wake up, there's things that wake us up and bring us into wakefulness state that we can sustain through, on most of the day. Now with insomnia, this kind of gets messed up, these two different systems. And what starts to happen is the wakefulness system starts to interfere during the night when your sleep system should be dominant. So, let's say it's your bedtime that you normally would go to bed. You're exhausted, you have insomnia, you haven't been sleeping well, and you get into bed, and you might even be feeling a lot of tiredness and exhaustion and pressure to sleep, like you want to sleep. And then you get into bed and you're alert. And you are just lying there awake. I mean, you might be anxious, you might not be anxious, but you're just lying there like totally wide awake. And you're like, what the hell's going on here? I was just feeling exhausted, and I totally felt like I could sleep, and then I get in the bed and I'm totally awake. Well, what happened there? Well, what happened there is your wakefulness system sort of kicked in. And the reason that happened is this association that happens between the bed and your body, or the bed and your brain, when you have insomnia, where you have built up a connection between these two things. Why does that happen? I've talked about this before many times, but it's basically because if you spend a lot of time in the bed awake and alert, or any kind of stimulated state that might be because you're anxious or frustrated or something like that, and you do that for a long enough period of time, over a long number of days, weeks, months, whatever, that starts to getting associated with the bed. And this is the way like our brains are built, is to create associations and connections with different things, because that helps us, automate behaviors. It creates habits. It makes it so we don't have to keep relearning things, because we create these associations that our brain automatically does. So what we want is for the bed to be a strong association to sleep and sleepiness and mainly just that. So when we get in the bed just sort of triggers that state. You already should be going into the state. It's not like you're totally awake. And, if you're a normal sleeper, it's not like you're totally awake and you get into bed and then like it knocks you out, like that. You're going into that state, for several hours actually. But when you get in the bed, it's sort of like your brain knows, okay, this is the place where we actually are going to sleep. And then you just get knocked out, because that association has been established, because you've spent many nights, many years in the bed sleeping. Okay. Now with insomnia, once you're in a pattern of insomnia and you're spending more and more time in the bed awake versus asleep, it starts to confuse your brain. Your brain now has mixed association, meaning sometimes you might be sleeping and sometimes you might be totally awake and alert, because your brain doesn't know, do you want to be asleep or be awake? Because sometimes you're just lying there awake, and you're lying there awake for hours, and you've been doing that over a long period of time, and it's trying to help you stay awake when you don't want to be awake. Okay? So in other words, what happens is your wakefulness system starts to interfere and take over in the night at certain times on certain days when you want to be sleeping. Your wakefulness system is making you alert and generating that wakefulness feeling, and that counteracts the sleepiness. It overrides the tiredness and the exhaustion, and then that gets associated and connected to the bed. So now the bed's a trigger. Okay, so obviously we don't want this, but this is why then during the day, or one reason why during the day you feel alert and awake, or when you get into bed at night, you suddenly get alert because your brain thinks, we're in the bed now. And when we're in the bed, a lot of the times we're alert. Okay. Now, depends on the kind of insomnia you have. If you have an onset insomnia, which is difficulty falling asleep or initiating sleep, you're going to have more of this kind of experience I described, where you're exhausted and you get into bed and you become alert and you become awake, and then it's hard for you to fall asleep or initiate sleep. Okay, now with other people, if they have what's called maintenance insomnia, which is difficulty maintaining sleep, they may be fine. Like their sleep system might be dominant initially when they get into bed, and they go out and they have no problem falling asleep, and they sleep 3-4 hours, whatever, something like that. And then they wake up in the middle of the night, and then now they experience that alertness. Even though they've only had 2-3-4 hours of sleep, they wake up and now all of a sudden they become very alert and awake. And now that association is happening then. So, or sometimes people have both. They have difficulty falling asleep, and then they'll wake up in the night and have difficulty going back to sleep. So what's going on there is the brain is just confused, and there's been two associations connected to the same thing, which is the bed. It doesn't know whether you want to be awake or asleep, and at what times you want to be awake and asleep, and so it's firing off different physical responses in your body that will either allow you to sleep or keep you awake. And this is despite how exhausted and tired you are, how long you've had insomnia. This dynamic is going on, and the pattern can be different for each person, but it's the same basic sort of underlying issue here. Okay, so the process of overcoming insomnia, one huge part of it is breaking that association in the bed and reestablishing just an association of sleep or sleepiness, when you're in the bed, and removing that association of alertness. Okay, now the other thing that sort of counteracts sleepiness during the day is another system in our body, which is our circadian rhythm. Okay, you've probably heard this term before. Circadian rhythm. Circadian circa just means about, and circadian, I believe, is a day. It's about a day. So it's basically like about a day. We have this inner clock in our body that regulates different physical things in our body on a 24-hour basis. Okay, and this is the other thing that wakes people up during the day, even if you had a sleepless night or you only slept 2, 3, 4 hours. The circadian rhythm counteracts the tiredness. Okay, so what this is once you wake up in the morning, your body starts to shift into the wakefulness state, and there are physical changes that go on in the body. So starting at around 4 a.m. in the morning, your body temperature is at the lowest point. Okay, it's our body temperature is one thing that's regulated by the circadian rhythm, and in order to sleep and in order to wake up in the morning and be awake during the day, our body temperature shifts. So the average body temperature for a human is 98.6. But our body temperature doesn't stay static through the day. It doesn't stay the same. It varies. So it's at its lowest point at 4 a.m. or around 4 a.m. Because it's been going down up to that point. And then after that, it starts to go up. And that's one thing that will wake us up in the morning is our body temperature is increasing. And for sleep, our body temperature, our core body temperature needs to be lower. So that starts going up. So that's one thing that's going to start waking us up and counteract the tiredness of the insomnia. Another thing is sunlight. Okay, actually, let me finish the temperature thing. So the temperature starts going up from around 4 a.m., and it's going to keep rising actually throughout the day until you get to around 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So over like the 12 hours of that day till about 4 p.m. in the afternoon, our body temperature is rising. Okay, so it's not huge. It might go up like a degree, like the variation might be a degree or two, but it's continuing to rise. And as your core body temperature rises, it wakes you up and it makes it more difficult to sleep. Okay, so that's one thing that's going on. And then what happens is after we hit 4 p.m. or sometime in that afternoon time, now our bodies are actually going to start slowly shifting into getting you ready for sleep in the evening, and other changes are going on. But one thing that'll happen is your body temperature starts to drop and go down very slowly. And it'll keep doing that all the way until like your bedtime, until it's at sort of an optimal place for your body temperature to be for sleep. So temperature is one thing that's going to wake you up and keep you awake through the day and counteract that tiredness. And that's one thing that's keeping that prevents the sleepiness, let's say. Okay. Now, the second thing is melatonin. Now, melatonin is a natural occurring hormone in the body that's part of the sleep system. Now, people take melatonin, right? Everyone knows melatonin because people take that for sleep. They tried it for insomnia. It's like they take it as a supplement. I've talked on previous videos how melatonin doesn't really do anything for your sleep unless you happen to be, maybe in your 60s or older. It can help, but generally it doesn't do anything. And you already have it. It's already a natural part of your body. So when we get to that, so what happens is at that 4 a.m. time when your temperature is starting to go up, melatonin release is going to start going down. And particularly when the sun comes up in the morning, the sunlight hitting your eyes is a trigger for the body to stop releasing melatonin. And then that allows you to wake up too, because melatonin is part of the system that triggers the sleepiness and the tiredness. So when we remove that in the morning and that starts to go away and that system is turned off, that's another thing that's going to make you more alert. Okay. And then what happens is after 4 p.m. or so in the afternoon, when your body temperature starts to drop, your body then starts to release melatonin. And melatonin signals sort of the beginning of this process of transitioning into the sleep state, later in that evening. Okay, and then the other one that I just mentioned is the sunlight, right? So when you wake up and you open the blinds or the sunlight's coming through the window, that is another thing that's going to wake you up because it also triggers. It tells your body it's daytime. So now we need to wake up because we need to get going and, go to work. And part of this is physical. And I think part of this is also just sort of habit that your body has learned that when the sun comes up and your body starts going through these changes, that you want to be alert and you want to wake up for the day. So your body wakes up. Another thing that can be a trigger here is appetite and your sort of eating schedule. So if when you're having breakfast, it's another signal, or having coffee in the morning, it's another. So there's all these cues that cue your body at a physical level that trains the circadian rhythm to put your body through these physical changes that either wake you up or make you tired and sleepy in the evening and regulate all these other systems. So if you have even a sleepless night, you don't sleep a wink, you would think, oh my God, I'm going to be, sleepy the whole day. I'm not going to be able to keep my eyes open. I didn't sleep at all. And yet in the morning, you get out by the bed and you're fully alert. And you find that you can actually even function. Obviously you're not going to function optimally. You're not going to feel that great, but you're going to, all these different physical changes in the circadian rhythm that I mentioned are going to counteract the tiredness, because now your wakefulness system is kicked in and there's all these physical changes. And so now you can actually, get through the day, and you can do it, without falling asleep or feeling the effects of the insomnia so much. I mean, meaning that you won't feel sleepy. You'll feel the effects of the insomnia because you just won't feel that good. And you'll feel fatigue, and you'll feel kind of your mood. You're not going to feel good. People with insomnia don't feel that good. You could feel really terrible. It could intensify all other kinds of issues, and it definitely gets in the way of functioning and focus and all. So I'm not saying like you just get completely restored by the circadian rhythm, but what I'm saying is those physical sort of changes that happen in the morning and through the day counteract the sleepy feeling. So it's a combination of that's sort of those physical changes in the morning with the circadian rhythm, and then the alertness association that happens at nighttime when you get into the bed to go to sleep. Okay, so you have two of these things that are sort of working against being sleepy. So that's kind of the science and the physical part of what's going on when someone is not feeling sleepy during the day, or even at night when you get into bed when you have insomnia. Now, how do we change this? Well, basically we need to break the association with the bed, right? So we need to start associating being sleepy or actually sleeping in the bed, and break the association of wakefulness. And we do that through the process that I've described here. I went through the whole process of the treatment for insomnia, the treatment, really the only effective treatment process for it. That's very powerful. It's very effective. But basically, it's all designed to do this. It's all designed to sort of break this association at night in the bed. So when you get in the bed, you get sleepy and you fall asleep, and you don't wake up and become very alert. Or if you do wake up in the night, you're able to fall back asleep because you're still in that sleepy state. And we're kind of breaking the wakefulness system from being active at night and turning that off. And then we're reactivating or turning on or strengthening the sleep system. So that's dominant at night. So then you can, have a normal, healthy pattern of sleep. And we do that through key behavioral changes, some mental shifts, and things like that, in order to get you back to where you were before, or establish a healthy pattern of sleep, and just kind of get those systems back working effectively. And so that's kind of the key part at night. And then what starts to happen is a part of this process is getting you back on a normal pattern of sleep. Because with insomnia, either someone, they might have a consistent bedtime and wake up time, but during a lot of that time, they're just lying in bed and they're not sleeping, and you're just lying there awake. And all you're doing is feeding the insomnia and reinforcing it, and you're going to be stuck in that cycle indefinitely, even if you have a regular bedtime and wake up time. Or what happens is people, many times, their bedtime and wake up time is just erratic. They're going to bed different times. They're maybe going to bed earlier to try to compensate for lost sleep, or they're sleeping in. And just there's a lot of variation. And so the body never can relearn how to establish a normal, consistent pattern of sleep where you're getting sleepy and ready for sleep at a certain time in the evening, and you're waking up around a certain time in the morning, and you're doing that consistently. And ideally, ultimately, you're doing it without an alarm, because your body just is set internally, has this healthy, consistent pattern of sleep. And then once that happens, then now the circadian rhythm, everything is working good. So at night, your sleep system becomes dominant, and then you're getting a full night of sleep. And then during the day, you wake up and you're awake and alert during the day, because not only because of the circadian rhythm and all those things I said that wake you up, but you had a really good night of restful, restorative sleep. So then you feel really good. And then in the evening, or in the afternoon, when your body starts going through those changes, and then you get into the evening, your body starts to actually get sleepy, because it's on a regular pattern, and then that system kicks in and you start getting sleepy. And also because we've counteracted that alertness association, your body can actually feel that sleepiness. So like another way to think about this is like when you have insomnia, your body is sort of built up an armor against the sleepiness, because it's like, because your wakefulness system is overactive. It's sort of like, kind of like what happens when people are overtired. This isn't insomnia, but when someone's overtired, a lot of times their body becomes more alert. It's sort of because the body wants to sleep. And if you keep overriding that system, then the body suddenly just will say, oh, okay, obviously you're trying not to sleep. So I'll just make you more alert and make you awake. And then you can just make yourself more alert and awake to override it. Like this happens, with students when they're trying to do all-nighters or things like that. This happens to, doctors who are in residency and they have to stay up for, 1 or 2 days. Ultimately, the body just, because you're not letting yourself sleep, the body will just make you alert and override that. Okay. So that's not insomnia yet, but I think that dynamic happens a lot with insomnia, where the wakefulness system or that alertness part of your body is keeping you awake, and it's not allowing you to relax, to feel the tiredness and the sleepiness that naturally comes. And I know someone's making progress in my program when they start to get sleepy, when they actually start to get sleepy in the evening, where they're like falling asleep on the couch, or they're reading a book and they're getting sleepy, or even during the day they're fighting off sleepiness. That's a really good sign. But the problem is we don't want that just to happen. We don't want it to happen during the day when they're driving a car, and we don't want it to happen when you're at work. We want that to happen, ideally most of the time in the evening, around the time you're getting close to bed. And then the other thing we want is when you get into the bed, you carry that sleepiness with you, and there's no alert trigger. There's no part of your brain that's like sort of triggering that alertness, and you can just go from being sleepy on the couch to getting into bed, and that sleepiness carries you right into a sleep state. Because what happens is when people, they do start to get sleepy as they're going through the treatment, and I'm working them to help them overcome insomnia, they might start getting sleepy, and they're falling asleep on the couch, or they're having a really hard time staying awake to get to their bedtime. But let's say they were able to do that, and then they get into the bed, then they still become alert in the bed, even though they were sleepy on the couch. So it's a good progress when that's happening. But what we haven't broken is that association with the bed and that alertness trigger that's happening. Once we start to break that, then the sleepiness will start to carry more consistently into the bed, and then the person will be able to, fall asleep or stay asleep, without any issue. So that hopefully answers that question of, is it normal to not feel sleepy or get sleepy when you have insomnia? And you should have a really much better understanding now of like the different systems in the body that are happening, and the different associations that happen with insomnia that kind of that counteract this feeling of sleepiness, even though you might be exhausted and tired and you desperately want to sleep, you need to sleep, but you're not feeling the actual sleepiness that could carry you into the sleep state. All right. So if you like this video, just press the like button. If you're on YouTube, you can also subscribe to my channel. I do one of these videos every week. And if you have questions like this came from, someone who's, just watched one of the videos here on YouTube, one of the subscribers who had a question, and they just posted it in the YouTube feed. And so I read all those questions. If you post a question or all the comments, if you have a question you want me to answer specifically for you, and I think it might be a good one to do on a video, I'll do a video just like this for you. All right. So have a good rest of your week, and I will see you next time.